The Wheel of Time mod for Mountain Blade 2 Bannerlord turns that fantasy into something you can actually play. The moment you load into the campaign, you are no longer in Calradia. You are inside a world where kingdoms rise and fall under prophecy, where armies march under legendary banners, and where the one power can decide the fate of an entire battlefield in seconds. Everything feels different from the start because the factions are no longer random medieval clans. Now you are dealing with the mighty nations from the Wheel of Time universe, each with their own culture, armor style, military units, and political tension that makes every campaign decision matter more than before. When you begin your journey, you are not just choosing a kingdom to serve. You are deciding what kind of story you want to live in this massive fantasy war. Maybe you want to fight for the disciplined armies of Andor, holding the line with heavily armored infantry while cavalry charges break the enemy formations. Maybe you want to command the fast and deadly Aiel warriors who can destroy enemies using speed and aggressive tactics before they even realize what is happening. Or maybe you prefer the advanced technology of the Shanshan, bringing an overwhelming military force that combines strategy with raw power in ways that normal Bannerlord factions simply cannot match. Every faction changes how you approach combat, how you build your army, and how you survive on the campaign map. Battles feel more intense because troop types are not just stronger or weaker versions of what you already know, they fight differently. Some rely on shields and tight formations, some depend on mobility and hit-and-run tactics, while others are built for pure frontline destruction. And then there's the real game changer that completely transforms how war works in this mod, which is the inclusion of channelers. The One Power introduces a layer of strategy that Bannerlord never had before. Suddenly, positioning is no longer only about infantry lines and cavalry flanks. Now you must think about protecting your channelers while also finding ways to eliminate the enemies before they wipe out your troops with devastating attacks that can turn a winning battle into a disaster in seconds. Sieges become unpredictable because defending walls is no longer a guaranteed advantage when the enemy can use supernatural abilities to break formations or cause chaos inside tight defensive positions. Open field battles can quickly spiral out of control if you ignore enemy channelers who are standing behind their army, quietly preparing something that could destroy your entire front line. This forces you to adapt constantly. Charging without thinking is no longer safe. Waiting too long can also be dangerous. Every fight becomes a mix of medieval warfare and magical dominance, where your tactical decisions truly matter. Outside of combat, the campaign world is filled with familiar locations and political relationships that fans of Robert Jordan's universe will recognize immediately. Alliances shift, wars break out, and your actions can influence which faction grows stronger over time. If you build the right army and choose your battles carefully, you can change the balance of power across the entire map. You might start as a simple mercenary, fighting small skirmishes for gold, but eventually you can lead massive armies into wars that decide the future of entire nations. Every victory brings you closer to becoming a major force in a world that constantly reacts to your success or failure. Progression also feels more meaningful because your army is not just a collection of upgraded units. Each soldier type has a role that matters in battle, and building the wrong composition can easily cost you a war. Mixing heavy infantry with fast skirmishers, protecting valuable units from cavalry charges, and keeping your channelers alive becomes just as important as your own combat skills on the battlefield. Even your personal equipment matters more because facing enemies with advanced tactics and supernatural abilities requires preparation, not just bravery. As your influence grows, you will find yourself making decisions that shape the world around you. Supporting one faction may weaken another. Winning one war may start another. Expanding too quickly may attract enemies you are not ready to face. The mod constantly creates new challenges that force you to think ahead instead of reacting too late. It becomes less about surviving the next battle and more about planning your next campaign before your enemies do the same. By the time you are leading thousands of soldiers across the map, launching sieges against powerful cities, and defending your territory from enemy invasions supported by channelers, you realize that this is no longer just Bannerlord with new textures. It becomes a full fantasy war simulation, where strategy, timing, and leadership decide whether you dominate the continent or lose everything you built. The deeper you go, the more you start to understand how every small decision at the beginning shaped the empire you are trying to protect at the end. And the most interesting part is that no two campaigns play out the same way. Different alliances, unexpected wars, surprise invasions, and the constant threat of powerful enemies ensure that every playthrough tells a different story. Whether you rise as a hero defending your chosen nation or become a conqueror feared across the land depends entirely on how you adapt to a world where swords and strategy meet something far more dangerous than steel.